Hello and welcome to the Comic Book Club. I am your host, Matt Lasik, and I know a lot about comic books.
I'm your co-host, Kendra Forte, and I know nothing about comic books.
And, folks, we are going to jump right into part 2 of our discussion on Crisis on Infinite Earths. So, if you weren't here for part 1 last week, or if you haven't listened to it yet, sorry. Come back in a couple of weeks when we're doing something else. Or maybe just go back and listen to the last episode and then come back to this one. Anyways, picking up right where we left off at the end of issue 4, which ended on a bit of a cliffhanger as Earths 1 and 2 were consumed by the antimatter wave. Issue 5 starts off in the void, where an ominous voice that has, been seen throughout this entire situation celebrates the destruction of what he refers to as the first 2 prime universes, but notices that his power has not increased like it usually has been after each other universe has been destroyed. So that's interesting. He also reveals that at some point he had captured the Flash, which is why he had disappeared, very viscerally disappeared, a couple issues ago. So mysteries abound. Meanwhile, back on the Monitor's satellite, which seems to be floating in some sort of white void, Pariah and Lila mourn over his body when suddenly a pre-recorded message plays over the speakers, revealing that he knew that this whole scenario would happen. He knew that Lila would get corrupted and would eventually be driven to kill her father figure / teacher, what have you.
For the 6th time in like 5 issues, he's like, I knew this would happen.
He's been telling us this whole time that he knew it would happen, and hey, guess what? It happened. But apparently it's all part of his, master plan to save the multiverse or whatever. Killing the Monitor released. It was such a momentous thing that happened that it released enough energy to turn on and power the big vibrational tuning fork tower thingies that our heroes had been protecting, which in turn created a quote-unquote netherverse to temporarily house Earth 1 and 2 and their respective universes. However, this is not a permanent solution. As established last episode, each universe has a unique vibration, but these vibrations are slowing down, meaning that the Earths are coming close to occupying the same space. And when they do, they'll basically blow up. I'm trying to think of an example, but all of my examples are other things from comic books because this is not a real science.
This is not a real thing that happens, therefore there's no
basis for me to compare it to. Yes, at this point, Alex Luthor shows up, and he's like a full-grown man now. Little freak. Saying that he has some sort of vague instructions, or probably specific to him, vague to us, because this comic loves to set things up and then wait like 4 issues to deliver. Apparently Alex Luthor has instructions left behind by the Monitor on what to do next. Meanwhile, back on the Earth, the now combined, or sort of combined Earths 1 and 2, all of time is existing at once. So we see dinosaurs next to skyscrapers, next to like horse-drawn carriages, next to like World War II fighter planes, and everyone's confused and scared. It's at this point that dozens of heroes and villains from across time on both Earths are summoned to the satellite. During this, there's like a cute little cutaway to where Lois Lane is interviewing different people from across time. Like, she interviews people from like the Revolutionary War, and then an alien from the far future, and she tries to interview a caveman, and he like eats the microphone. Just a little bit of levity injected into this serious situation. Alex informs the collected beings what we had been told at like the beginning of issue 1, that the multiverse is meant to be one universe, and that merging them together back into what they were quote unquote meant to be is basically the only way to save everything. Like, they need to reinforce, they got to shore up the building that is the universe by merging stuff together. But he's not going to like force the people there to help him. They're basically sent back to sort of see the danger for themselves and make their final decision. Meanwhile, back on Oa, if you remember previously, the Guardians of the Universe, whose headquarters is on Oa, the leaders of the Green Lantern Corps, had been incapacitated by some strange explosion or something. So we finally see a contingent of Green Lanterns investigating why their rings had suddenly stopped working, which we had also seen in previous issues, as well as why the Guardians had fallen silent. And they discover that the Guardians are trapped in some sort of stasis beam right before a large blast of energy hits them as well. Mysteries abound. Then there's a montage of various heroes dealing with like the time space woobity woobity stuff. Like Superman punches a saber-toothed tiger. Batman has to deal with like a cave full of cave people materializing in the middle of Wayne Manor. All these little shenanigans. Back in the Dark Void, the mysterious voice takes Red Tornado, who he had kidnapped in a previous issue, and transforms him into this like primal tornado force thingy, and basically unleashes the storm that was Red Tornado onto the merging Earths, causing untold chaos and destruction as, superstorms basically just, During all of this, a hero from Earth 2 known as Wildcat is severely injured. It's about this time when stuff happens that takes up space within the comic, but it's basically just like set up for stuff that will happen post-crisis and isn't really important.
Yeah, I was like, why do I care?
Exactly, yeah. So it's like, this is just like a dude. Like, he's just a dude from Earth 2 that is sometimes a hero, and like, oh no, he's hurt. Aren't there like 20 other dudes that were hurt? So I will still mention them because, they're there, and so that people don't be like, hey, why did you skip that? I'll mention it, but I'll just be like, hey, this doesn't matter because it's something that happens post-crisis. So yeah, that's what happens. So the crazy red tornado storm afflicting both Earths is important, but Wildcat being injured, not so much. They do spend a significant time showing Wildcat being injured, though. A bunch of different magicians from across both Earths team up to stop the storm. And when they do, the basically shattered robotic corpse of Red Tornado falls out of the epicenter. And that's sort of the deciding factor for all of the heroes and villains to be like, yes, we must stop this. Let's merge together and fight for humanity or what have you.
Because that wasn't the plan before somehow.
Well, the whole point of that whole segment was that like Alex was like, I'm not going to force you guys to do anything, so I'm just going to let you go see how bad it is so that you can make the decision yourself. At least that's how I read it. I think all of the heroes there would have just agreed regardless.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You should have just agreed. Like, it sounds bad. I don't need to go see it.
Yeah. And it's not like it's not even like it's not like this is the beginning of this. Like, this is 5 issues in. It's not like they didn't
you guys
already
know what's happening.
Exactly.
You have seen woolly mammoths come out of nowhere, destroy a city, and then leave.
But no, it's the red tornado storm that really hammered the point home for these guys, I guess. Anyways, back on the satellite, Alex is preparing to send the Assembled to save the other 3 remaining positive universes that hadn't been consumed yet, that are still existing outside of this temporary netherverse, when suddenly the satellite that they're on starts crumbling around them as it's under attack. Ooh.
Ooh.
In the
As
void,
is everything in all of these issues.
Yeah. In the void, the mysterious voice that's been saying big words this whole time finally reveals his face and name, the Anti-Monitor. Ooh. You can't see it, audio listeners, but I'm doing like the spooky fingers at Kendra in the studio here. Ooh, Anti-Monitor. I really do like his design. Because it's a whole build-up to reveal what his face looks like. He's got, like, these... the only thing that is weird is, like, he's got, like, those, like, teeth. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, a good 40% of his face is just, like, teeth that seem to be permanently clenched. Just walls of bony white. But it's an interesting design choice. But yeah, I should say, editorially, he's known as the Anti-Monitor, but when he first appears, he just says, "Call me the Monitor," which I can totally see how it's confusing since there's like, this is now the second new character that's called the Monitor, but this guy's the Anti-Monitor. The other guy
Was the Monitor.
yeah, the pink-skinned guy with the heavy brow that was killed by Lila, that's the Monitor. The dude in the blue armor with the yellow eyes and the walls of teeth is the Anti-Monitor. Anyways, we also see one of the other 3 remaining universes that is currently being destroyed by the antimatter. This is Earth X, where Uncle Sam, as in like the literal Uncle Sam, like the dude on the poster, leads a team called the Freedom Fighters against Nazi forces in a World War II never ended. I want to take this brief respite to talk about Uncle Sam because it's so like weird and interesting to me as a character. So Uncle Sam's whole shtick is that he is he's like a how do I say this? He's like a concept made real. So like Father Time, like that kind of thing. Uncle Sam is literally the Uncle Sam in that he is the coalesced version of like America's spirit or whatever, and he's powered by like people believing in the concept of America.
I love that. I love that for him.
There was a recent miniseries, I think just called Freedom Fighters, that like was like a reinterpretation of Earth X, that explored that whole concept of like, oh, like what if, you know, Nazis had won and taken over America, and they have like Uncle Sam being all bruised and battered, and he's like, America doesn't exist anymore, and then, you know, whatever plucky whoever adventurer is like, no, Uncle, like, I believe in America, it can come back, and he's like, oh, I feel the power surging through me, the power of America.
It's like Santa Claus, but for America.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, yeah, you're right. Or, what is it? Do you remember, like, the live-action Peter Pan? Where
oh, yeah.
It was all the fairies were powered by belief?
Yeah, believe. They would, like, I do
believe in fairies, I do.
In the play, you had to, like, clap to show that you believed in fairies.
Yeah, I saw that movie in theaters with, like, my summer camp as a child. And it was there's only a couple things I remember from it, but it was very, like, it was one of those things of, like, the late 2000s, early 2010s where they just, like, take, like, some like, classic story and, like, make it with, like, live-action actors and stuff, and it kind of takes away, like, an amount of whimsy. So there's, like, a whole scene where, like, the girl, oh, God, what's her name? The main girl.
Wendy?
Yeah, Wendy's like in school and she's drawing, like she's like doodling pictures of her being visited by Peter Pan, and they're like, oh, boys with wings don't exist or something. It's really weird. There's other movies like, and now when I'm trying to think of other movies that did this,
and it's gone.
It's gone. My point is, there's a scene in that movie where like Captain Hook and his pirates are trying to like sneak up on the Lost Boys, but they're being guarded by fairies. So what they do to kill the fairies, they just walk around the perimeter of the camp whispering, "I don't believe in fairies," and then the fairy goes ah! and dies. And that's like the only scene from that movie that's stuck in my brain is Captain Hook going, "I don't believe in fairies." Ah! Anyways,
great detour. Let's go. Yeah.
Issue 5 ends with the Freedom Fighters diving towards the antimatter wave in a futile attempt to stop it as it eats away at their planet. Anyways, issue 6. That was a huge tangent. I don't know.
Yes, I was excited to see how far you'd go. I was looking at the clock like, are we gonna finish 4 issues, or is he gonna talk about Peter Pan the entire time?
I needed to get that memory out of my brain because it's one of like the core memories that I have, and I don't know why. Anyways, issue 6. In the Void, the Anti-Monitor finally gives Psycho Pirate his payment, which he's been like referencing for this whole story. That being, he boosts Psycho Pirate's power levels so that he has like full emotional control over the 3 other existing Earths not in the Netherverse. Kind of, they can be like little playground of emotions because, again, man's a freak.
But we've seen Psycho Pirate, like, well, we've heard him talk about like the negative feedback from using his powers. Like, apparently it hurts or whatever. Like, yeah, I feel like that would just kill him.
Well, that's why he needed the Anti-Monitor to boost his powers for him, so he could do all this without the feedback and such. I think. Anyways,
I don't think it ever said anything about the feedback. Just it boosted his powers, and I assumed the feedback was boosted with it.
I'm not sure. It doesn't really say. It's also, remember, this is also comic book, so whatever the writer says goes.
Yeah.
And consistency is sometimes thrown out of the window for a good story. Anyways, back on the satellite that is actively crumbling, the monitor satellite, the monitor satellite. This is going. Oh my god, this is going to be confusing, isn't it?
No, just call the other one the anti-monitor, like we've been doing.
Right. So back on the monitor satellite, all the assembled heroes and villains all try to like help and save each other as it crumbles around them. During this kerfuffle, Pariah is pulled away to another Earth because mans cannot catch a break.
The monitor is dead, and he's still being pulled from Earth to Earth.
Yep. Alex then prepares to sacrifice himself to draw the remaining Earths into the Netherverse, but Harbinger instead knocks him out and prepares to sacrifice herself instead. Meanwhile, quick cutaway, on Earth 1, we see Lex Luthor and Brainiac plotting something. ... Anyways, the assembled heroes are all sent off to the remaining Earths as planned. On Earth X, Steel, Starfire, Hawkman from Earth 2 and his son Northwind, and the new Dr. Light arrive on Earth X to see an image of Harbinger sort of holding the antimatter wall at bay, and the populace of Earth X like racing crazed towards the antimatter wall like lemmings off a cliff, which apparently is fake. Did you know that the whole thing is like fake? Like some scientist basically threw a lemming off a cliff and then took photographs of all the other lemmings jumping off. People are like, oh, funny little animals or something. But like they don't naturally do that.
That's hilarious. I've never heard that myth to begin with.
You've never heard of the lemmings thing?
I have heard the phrase like lemmings off a cliff, and I didn't know what it was from, or referencing, or where it was from.
Well, supposedly it's referencing that like if like because like they move in like herds or whatever, and if like the lead lemming happens to jump off a cliff, they'll all just go rushing after it. But apparently that was all like sort of faked and forced, and not actually a natural occurring phenomenon, which makes more sense.
Yeah.
Than like, oh yeah, these mammals routinely throw themselves off cliffs. Anyways, it appears that the populace of Earth X is being controlled. I wonder who could be controlling these people. But as the heroes try and get in their way, the freedom fighters suddenly appeared and start fighting them. And based off of their dialogue, it seems like the freedom fighters believe that it's the Earth 1 and 2 heroes' fault that their Earth is being consumed, that Earth X is being consumed. Also, little nitpick, this whole issue is like the other heroes slowly putting together the pieces that Psycho Pirate is doing this. And it's frustrating as the reader because we already know that it's Psycho Pirate doing this, but we have to watch them be like, brain blast. Ooh, who could be doing this? It's like, Psycho Pirate. Who do you know that's been involved in this whole cosmic kerfuffle that can do this and has mysteriously disappeared? Think!
Use your small little brains.
You're too punch drunk. On Earth 4, Martian Manhunter, Katana. Do you want to know what Katana's power is? Try and guess what her power is.
Does she have the power of a katana?
She owns a katana.
Awesome.
That's it. It's said that usually it's said that her katana is like magical, but there was a recent series, I think it's still ongoing, written from her perspective that was basically like, no, I'm just crazy. I just like attack like a crazy person and people assume that my katana is magic because they don't want to accept the fact that like a short Asian woman just killed 50 mobsters with a sword.
Am I being racist, or was she in
Suicide Squad? She
there
was
we
in
go.
the original Suicide Squad.
There we go. I was like, I know there was an Asian woman with a katana. I don't want to sound like
Katana.
a terrible person.
No, you're correct. It's fair that you couldn't remember it clearly because she shows up like halfway into the movie and Rick Flag just goes, "This is Katana," and that's all we learn about her.
Yeah.
We've talked too much about that movie on this podcast. Anyways, Earth 4, Martian Manhunter, Katana, the original Flash, Jay Garrick from Earth 2, I think a Legionnaire named Block, and an unnamed mysterious winged man. They appear on Earth 4, which we already established is home to the Charlton Comics characters, who served as basis for the Watchmen. They are attacked by those characters, sort of the same deal as the Freedom Fighters on Earth X. They seem to believe that it's Earth 1 and 2, heroes' fault, whatever. However, the difference between Earth X and Earth 4 is that Blue Beetle, native to Earth 4, was a part of the first contingent that was sent to protect the Resonance Towers, but now he seems to have his memory altered. Who do we know that can alter memories like that? Anyways.
Anywho, moving on.
Yep. And then on the final surviving Earth, that being Earth S, which is home to the Captain Marvel family, who I'll be referring to as the Shazam family, just to clear up any confusion, are Beast Boy, who at this point was being known as Changeling, as well as Black Canary, Supergirl, Wonder Woman, and a Teen Titan named Cole, who has crystal powers. I believe this was we've talked about this on earlier episodes. Sort of one of the editorial purposes for this comic was to bring in characters from publishers that DC had acquired, and this seems to be the start of that effort. So, Earth 4 characters were initially owned by Charlton Comics. Earth S characters were initially owned by Fawcett Comics. So this is sort of taking the steps towards reintroducing those characters in this series to eventually bring them into the mainstream DC continuity. Earth S has the same deal as Earth X and 4. The populace is crazed and trying to kill themselves. The heroes native to that Earth seem to believe that the transported heroes has something to do with it. Fight, punch, punch. Different verse, same as the first. And finally, as all the heroes fight each other across the different Earths, they finally put the dots together and be like, maybe Psycho Pirate has something to do with this. Who would have thunk? And suddenly, all three Earths are pulled through the image of Harbinger that had been appearing on each of the three remaining Earths, and also put into the Netherverse, along with where Earth 1 and 2 are being hid. But this drains her of all of her power doing so, leaving behind only little female human Lila. Harbinger is no more.
What a way to go out. Like, I'll take that.
Yeah. Lila, by the way, is still alive, along with Alex Luthor from Earth 3. They're floating in a rock in space above the sort of swirling maelstrom that is 5 different universes being packed into one Netherverse. This issue ends with 2 little cliffhangers. The first being that across all 5 Earths, villains are mysteriously disappearing before the heroes' eyes. And then there's a setup for a new Wildcat, a reporter on Earth 2 named Yolanda Montez. Again, not anything that affects this story, but something to be set up for post-crisis. And that's issue 6. We are officially halfway through both this episode and the series overall.
Nice.
Do you have any thoughts to share at this moment in time?
Superheroes have little brains.
I mean, if you're catching that many punches to the head in a 24-hour period, you can't have that many brain cells left. Alrighty, moving on to issue 7. On that aforementioned rock floating above the Earth, Lila and Alex are joined by Pariah. It's at this point that Lila sort of reinforces, again, because this series loves to reinforce things, it reinforces the thing that the Monitor believed that Pariah still has some important role to play. And then he transports the 3 of them down to the Earth to finally explain things. It's at this point we learned that the disappearing villains were being teleported away onto Brainiac's ship. Ooh, cliffhanger. Then Lila, Alex, and Pariah sort of Earth hop across the 5 remaining Earths in the Netherverse as all the heroes are like, oh, what's going to happen? Just like, expositing and whinging and waxing poetic. Stuff that doesn't translate well into a podcast format. And they collect, as they go, Lady Quark, the sole survivor of, I think, Earth 6?
One of the Earths.
One of them.
That's the one where, like, only her family was, like...
Yep. Mm-hmm. Her family were the only super beings.
Yep.
So they grab Lady Quark, they grab the Supermen of Earth 1 and 2, they grab Uncle Sam, Captain Marvel, and Blue Beetle. Captain Marvel, of course, later being renamed Shazam. That's the last time I'll say that. Because otherwise I'll say it every time I mention him, and I don't want to keep doing that. Lila finally explains some backstory, and this also sort of serves as the backstory of the DC universe as a whole. 10 billion years ago, on ancient Oa eventually being home to the Guardians of the Universe, Green Lantern Corps, you know the deal. On ancient Oa, a scientist named Krona was trying to learn the origin of the universe, and built a machine that with which he tried to view to the beginning of time and try to witness the Big Bang. He sees an image of a giant ephemeral hand holding a cluster of stars right before his machines exploded, releasing something quote-unquote evil. This explosion of antimatter creates the antimatter universe, and it also split the positive matter universe into the multiverse. I don't think this is anything that had been explained in the earlier issues of this, but sort of a preconceived, just something that was known in the DC comics before this time, is that as well as Earth 1 being the mainstream universe and then being the multiverse, there was also sort of on the opposite side of that, across the mirror basically, is the antimatter universe. I think there was only really one important planet, that being Quard, which was home of the Thunderers, which was a whole Green Lantern thing. A lot of this sort of backstory of the universe is taken from the Green Lantern lore, but to be fair, that's because Green Lantern's the only DC hero at this time that really went beyond the boundaries of Earth. So this is basically what they had to work with.
Imagine messing up this badly.
Well, I mean, hubris, This whole thing is based around hubris. So dude's it's cool that we're in a scientific utopia, but I want to know what created the universe, because I think I can become God. So, well, he did mess up this badly. I mean, yeah, you're right. Imagine messing up so badly that you create the multiverse. Man's kind of had it coming to him. So yes, when the universe was split into the multiverse, each planet was duplicated into a universe except for Oa, whose quote-unquote sister planet was Quard in the antimatter universe. Since Owens are immortal, instead of just being able to give Krona the capital punishment, they decided to reduce him to disembodied energy and sent on a circular course throughout the entire universe. This again is something that ties into the Green Lantern comics, where Krona had popped up once or twice to be it's me, Krona, oogity boogity. The Owens' guilt over this whole multiversal matter is what led them to sort of appoint themselves Guardians of the Universe and eventually create the Green Lantern Corps. Meanwhile, on Quard in the antimatter universe, the Anti-Monitor himself was formed as a, quote, blasphemous parody of humanity. I just really love that line. This is why I put it in my notes. Sort of in response, almost as if, again, to quote this, as if in protest to some cosmic imbalance, the Monitor was formed on one of Oa's moons. So they're sort of, they're mirror images of themselves. Notes. The Anti-Monitor then went to conquer Quard and sort of forged an army of warriors out of Quard's natives, naming them the Thunderers. And then the elite and most evil of these Thunderers were further transformed into the shadow demons that we had seen everywhere in previous issues. Eventually, after conquering the rest of the antimatter universe, the Anti-Monitor sensed the existence of the positive matter universe, positive matter multiverse, and his positive matter counterpart, who had spent this time, quote unquote, learning the secrets of the universe, whatever that means. This sort of sudden awareness of the other then started this war that lasted 1,000,000 years between the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, who are two perfectly equal forces. So it was just a 1,000,000-year-long stalemate until a simultaneous attack sort of knocked them both into stasis for another 9 billion years. Side note, I think it's very funny to me that this story starts 10 billion years ago, but then the majority of it is and then they were unconscious
and then they were asleep.
And then they slept for 9 billion years.
You're like, all right, 10 billion years, too much to cover. Let's have them sleep.
It's at this point that Pariah enters the story. On some unnamed Earth in the multiverse, Pariah was a scientist that had created like almost miraculous devices to turn his planet into a utopia. He, like Krona, was full of that good old hubris and wanted to learn the origin of the universe. So he, like Krona, built a machine to do so. What he did is he used his machines to create sort of a cube-shaped chamber of antimatter, which he stepped into and saw, like what Krona saw, the hand at the beginning of the universe molding the stars, and, like Krona, unleashed a wave of antimatter into his universe, which destroyed it, like the other Earths. This is what Pariah refers to as his first of 3 sins. Pariah is the only survivor from his universe, as he was inside his little antimatter cube, where he was stuck for millions of years. However, that explosion of antimatter was enough to revive the Anti-Monitor, the second of Pariah's sins. When Pariah's universe was destroyed, the wave of antimatter filled the gap, tipping the balance of like half antimatter, half positive matter towards antimatter, thus empowering the Anti-Monitor, which the realization of which set Anti-Monitor towards the path of where we are now, this being the third of Pariah's sins. However, the reviving of Anti-Monitor and the consuming of Pariah's universe also managed to revive the Monitor, who created his satellite ship and empowered Pariah to sort of use him as a homing beacon. So since Pariah is pulled to whatever Earth is being destroyed next, the Monitor decided to use him and sort of follow Pariah around to sort of try and get the drop on his quote-unquote brother. Kendra, it looks like you have thoughts.
It's so unfortunate. 2 of these 3 sins, not directly Pariah's fault. Just unfortunate consequences.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it kind of is his fault, because the Anti-Monitor never would have figured out that destroying universes gives him power if Pariah's universe had never been destroyed. Pariah's universe would have never been destroyed if Pariah hadn't tried to view the beginning of time.
It's like one big sin instead of 3 sins.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
It's just sin 1. I messed up so completely terribly that the universe ended.
Mm-hmm.
I think 3 sins is putting a little too much on this person.
Well, if we've seen anything about Pariah, it's that he loves to put things on himself. Mans cries a lot. We'll say
I
that.
would too. I would be crying as well.
Yeah, you know what? I would also cry. Notes. Where are my notes? Yeah. So that sort of catches us up to present day. With all this being told, many more heroes are then recruited to be sent into the antimatter universe and attack the Anti-Monitor's stronghold. These assembled heroes are comprised of both Superman from Earth 1 and 2, Wonder Woman, Firestorm, Supergirl, Wildfire, who's a Legionnaire, the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and his daughter Jade, Shazam, the Ray from the Freedom Fighters, Lady Quark, Martian Manhunter, Captain Atom from Earth 4, and another Legionnaire named Largand, who's basically like Superboy but from the future. I wrote in my notes too many people to list, and then I thought about it and deleted that line and listed them all out just to prove I could, really. Just to prove that I knew who all of these people were, because I'm a freak like that and I have to flex my knowledge.
Flex your big brain.
I will do that. Alex then reveals his role in this big drama. Since he is comprised of both positive and antimatter, he can open a portal breaching he can open a portal into the antimatter universe via his body.
Because of course he can.
Mm-hmm. So Pariah then leads the heroes, all of which who can fly, thank goodness. Pariah then leads the heroes through the portal into the antimatter universe, which is described as a very painful process. Within the fortress itself, Anti-Monitor and the Psycho Pirate are watching the heroes approach. As the heroes explore the fortress, which is basically like this big planet-sized mono... it's this big stone planet that's shaped like a castle, basically. As the heroes explore this fortress, the walls themselves sort of form arms and mouths to attack them with. Very creepy. Also notable that in the antimatter universe, the laws of physics are different, so some powers aren't functioning as they would. Most notably of this being that the Kryptonians that are assembled are no longer fully invulnerable. This is important. What follows then is a long fight sequence as all the different heroes basically punch rocks. Goal kick rocks, loser. During this fight sequence, Dr. Light and Earth 1 Superman basically blast their way into the center of the fortress and discover a machine that collects solar energy that the Anti-Monitor had been using to reduce the vibrations of the Earth, causing them to sort of fold into each other and explode, as we had mentioned earlier. As they study it, the Anti-Monitor himself attacks, easily thrashing them, because he's basically the god of this universe. And this is just Dr. Light and Superman.
God, what? Keep talking. I'm going to figure out what show or comic we were reading. I think it was Watchmen, when someone just absolutely bodies two other superheroes.
Oh, it was Watchmen. It was when Rorschach and Night Owl tried to sneak up on Ozymandias. Yeah.
Ah, yes.
And they get absolutely
bodied.
Just straight up wrecked, yo. I can do that now. I can lean back from the mic and be loud. Isn't that fun? We're in studio now. I don't know if we ever said it. I think we said it in the first episode of season 2.
But we're in studio now.
Yeah. It's probably... If you listen to season 1, you should be able to hear the difference. Anyways. I can do this now. Isn't that... Kendra, isn't this cool?
So cool, dude.
Anyways, where were we? Right. Anti-Monitor attacks Dr. Light and Earth 1 Superman and beats them very easily. Supergirl then comes into the rescue and is basically just destroys the Anti-Monitor's physical shell as well as his machine that had, the solar machine, making the sort of living energy that is the real form of the Anti-Monitor retreat for the day. Unfortunately, this is at the cost of Supergirl's life. And this is another one of the editorial choices of this series. This incarnation of Supergirl was Earth 1 Superman's cousin that had also survived the destruction of Krypton. And one of the more significant changes post-Crisis is that DC really doubled down on the last son of Krypton bit of Superman's whole shtick. So to really make him the last son of Krypton, they killed his cousin.
You're like, all right, we've been too easy on you for too long.
Supergirl would eventually return, but it would be as like a shape-shifting alien that was like saved by Superman. So the alien was like, I'm gonna, honor you by also being a hero, and I'm gonna do it by turning into a girl version of you that's blonde. For reasons. If I'm remembering correctly, that shape-shifting alien would later merge with like an Earth human girl, and then also become an angel? ? And then they would disappear, and another Supergirl would show up that actually was Superman's cousin years later. So this decision didn't really stick. The gap between like this version of Superman's cousin and the later version of Superman's cousin is a very confusing gap in terms of Supergirl lore. But we'll probably get into that in a later episode. With the machines destroyed and the Earth's no longer in danger of merging and collapsing inwards, the heroes then return to the temporary Netherverse, and we get a long sequence of various heroes and civilians across Earth 1 mourning the death of Supergirl. And that's the end of issue 7. Issue 8. This is one of the issues that I've been waiting to talk about because I have a lot of things to say about it. There's another big like editorial decision that's made in this issue. So let's just hop right into this. On the Anti-Monitor ship, the Psycho Pirate contemplates releasing the Flash, who is still being held captive, so the two of them can try and rebel against the Anti-Monitor, as Psycho Pirate is afraid that he'll be killed for failing to control the heroes that invaded the Antimatter universe in the last issue. Before he can make a decision either way, the Anti-Monitor appears in his newly built and way more iconic physical form. This is the form that he would appear in for like all future appearances. On Apocalypse, home to Darkseid, who has been mysteriously not mentioned for the previous 8 issues. Darkseid is basically like, yeah, we're hiding, so the heroes can just do the work of restoring the universe for me so that I can conquer it later. I think the only reason this scene is in here is so that no one can ask, hey, where was Darkseid in all of this?
Darkseid, I'm here.
I'm just not doing anything. On Earth 1 Oa, with the big machine being destroyed, the Guardians are released from their stasis, and the Green Lantern Corps' rings are functioning again. In the 30th century of Earth 1, the Legion of Superheroes is trying to figure out how to undo the overlap of universes, so far unsuccessfully. In the present day, a couple of heroes that are sort of the remnants of the Justice League are trying to put Red Tornado back together again, like Humpty Dumpty. Apparently, while the outside, what follows next is a lot of stuff that will set up storylines post-Crisis, so I'm just going to try and run through them pretty quickly.
Go for it.
So while Red Tornado's outside still looks pretty similar, his internal mechanisms have been completely restructured due to whatever the Anti-Monitor did to him. Red Tornado then basically explodes, which sends a hero called Blue Devil into deep space to meet up with a team called the Omega Men. During this, Firehawk, who's basically a female Firestorm, gives herself a new costume. And that's that. That's like the middle chunk of this issue is just that. Meanwhile, on Quard, the Anti-Monitor is building another machine. This called an antimatter cannon that will apparently obliterate the remaining 5 universes with just a shot of pure or concentrated antimatter. Because when in doubt, antimatter. The Flash then chooses this moment to escape from his captivity. And he beats the ever-loving crap out of Psycho Pirate. Just really hands it to him, which is what he deserves. And he then uses the Psycho Pirate's powers to basically speedrun inciting a riot. Riot any percent. He basically runs around the Psycho Pirate and makes all of the Thunderers feel overwhelming hate towards the Anti-Monitor and makes them all fight each other.
Love that. Loved that.
Yeah, it's a very fun little sequence. During this kerfuffle, the Flash takes his opportunity to get inside the giant cannon and finds the core of the cannon, that being a mass of concentrated antimatter. He begins running around it to form a vortex which will force its energies inwards so that the core will eventually destroy itself. As he runs, his speed is so great that temporal portals start opening up in front of him. He sees his nephew, Kid Flash, as well as the Joker and the Batman. Remember from issue 1 or 2 when the Batman saw Flash? This is what he was doing. This is where it's from. Isn't that cool?
We love complete circles.
He ends up destroying the cannon as his body sort of crumbles away to bones and dust in a very, very iconic series of panels. This little sequence where like he's aging and crumbling away as the panels shrink down, that has been replicated a whole bunch of times in a whole bunch of different comics. Basically, anytime like a speedster runs so fast that they die, they use some variation on this series of panels. Very, very iconic. And this was a really big deal at the time, killing off the Flash, because the Barry Allen's Flash is basically what most people agree is the start of the Silver Age of comics. He was a really big deal. As we talked about in the last episode, at this point, editorially, he had been living in the future to basically escape a murder charge. So killing him off was a huge deal. Kid Flash, Wally West, would eventually pick up the Flash mantle and serve as the Flash until 2007, which is when Barry Allen was revived. But that's a really long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah. 85 to 2007, that's like 20 years? 22? 22 years. Yes, 22 years. So it's interesting to me that like a lot of modern DC media like the Arrowverse television shows, the DCEU movies, they all pick Barry Allen as their Flash, despite the fact that like for like their core audience growing up only knew Wally West as the Flash. Although I suppose part of that could be allocated to when the New 52 reboot happened in 2011, they reestablished Barry Allen as like the prime Flash.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only like 4 years after his return from the dead in mainstream continuity. But it's really interesting. That's just something that I've looked a lot into as like, who do people think is the Flash, Wally West or Barry Allen? Like when you say the Flash, who comes to mind? Anyways, Anti-Monitor's very angry because his big shooty gun is destroyed. So he absorbs the energy of the entire antimatter universe into his own body, which is just like instantly kills millions of denizens of the antimatter universe. He vows to change time itself to become victorious. In the Netherverse, the Spectre, who is a really interesting... The Spectre is a superhero, yes, but also supposedly the incarnation of God's wrath, which is a thing.
That's sexy.
So this issue ends with the Spectre sort of crying out in pain as he can sense the massive changes to time that are coming as a result of the anti-monitor basically going Super Saiyan. And that's where we'll end it today. This is sort of a thing that is, if you know about the Spectre, then this is like a big deal. But otherwise, like, why is this white and green man yelling a lot? But like, the Spectre is one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe. So seeing him screaming in agony is a pretty big deal. And that's where we'll end off. Another nice juicy cliffhanger. Next week we will finish our discussion. We will be covering issues 9 through 12. So if you want to be there for that, then you can. I did want to talk about some stuff, but we're kind of out of time. We started a little late and we did a lot of tangents, so I'll leave that for next week or the following week. If you want to talk to us, if you have anything to say, if you have questions, like something that I maybe skipped over or something that I didn't make quite clear, if you have questions that you want me to clear up, if you have comments of what you think about this, if you have suggestions for stories to read in the future, anything at all, you can tweet us at CBBCPod on Twitter. That's at CBBCPOD. Or you can email us at cbbcpod@gmail.com. I've been your co-host, Matt Lasik.
I've been your co-host, Kendra Forte.
I said co-host.
Well, we're both co-hosts.
Yeah, I guess. Anyways, I'm Matt Lasik.
I'm Kendra Forte.
Until next time, Excelsior.